The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
Our time now is 5:03, and we turn to our 17 Homicide Tracker. And a sex offender at the center of a firestorm of criticism against LA County's district attorney is charged with murder in Kern County. 17's Christian Galeno reports on yesterday's developments.
A criminal complaint provided by the district attorney's office claims that 26-year-old James Edward Tubbs, who identifies as female and goes by the name of Hannah Tubbs, killed Michael Clark in April of 2019. Clark's body was found in the Kern River in August of 2019. The College Place, Washington man had been reported missing May 2nd by friends who visited the area with him. DA Cynthia Zimmer tight-lipped with any details of what led to Tubbs' arrest. Zimmer confirmed DA investigators worked closely with the Kern County Sheriff's Office.
It was not atypical. We worked hand in hand with the Kern County Sheriff's Department, our Bureau of Investigation. It's very common in many cases.
Tubbs has been in hot water before. In 2014, Tubbs, who was 17 at the time, sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl in a Denny's restroom in Palmdale. In 2019, DNA evidence linked Tubbs to the crime. And in January, Tubbs pled guilty and was sentenced to 2 years in a juvenile facility. LA County DA George Gascon practicing his policy of refusing to try juveniles as adults.
Sir, one question. We still don't have all the information.
In a sidebar during a press conference Tuesday afternoon, Gascon says they don't have all the information when asked about the recent developments involving Tubbs. Jailhouse recordings obtained by our sister station in Los Angeles, where Tubbs gloats about her sentencing, only intensified the firestorm for Gascon.
I plead out to it. I'm plead guilty. They're going to stick me on probation, and it's going to be dropped. It's going to be done. I won't have to register. Won't have to nothing.
A spokesperson for the LA County DA said in a statement to 17 News, "We were unaware of the murder allegation against Miss Tubbs until today. As a result, we were never given the opportunity to consider this critical information before proceeding with our case in Los Angeles County."
I'm not going to talk about anything I know about Mr. Tubbs, and I'm not going to get involved in any type of political discussion regarding how we handle things here or how it's handled in LA.
Zimmer would not confirm if Tubbs' robbery charge is related to Clark's death, but Tubbs is now being held on a $1 million bail and is due back in court later this month. In Bakersfield, Christian Galeno, 17 News.
Also in your 17 Court Watch, 2 Wasco men arrested in connection with a massive street takeover in Bakersfield Saturday appeared in court yesterday. 20-year-old Simon Martinez and 19-year-old Jose Torres pleaded not guilty to gun and drug offenses. Martinez also faces a charge of recklessly evading peace officers. Police say 300 vehicles were involved in a takeover at several locations, with several officers assaulted and hit with bottles. Officers chased a vehicle allegedly driven by Martinez that traveled into opposing traffic lanes, turned its headlights off, and reached speeds above 100 miles per hour. Both men are due back in court May 20th. 6 others were arrested at different locations of the takeover event.
3 men are under arrest in connection to a shooting last week on Highway 58 that left a 24-year-old man dead. 2 of those suspects were in court yesterday. 22-year-old Tavian Wandek and 23-year-old Danelle King face multiple charges, including first-degree murder and assault with a firearm. The third suspect, 19-year-old Christopher Thompson, was not part of the court hearing. He was arrested late Monday night and is being held on a no-bail warrant, facing the same charges as the others. CHP says there has been an uptick in highway violence in the past 2 years in the area between Fort Tejon and Modesto. There's been 50 to 70 highway violent incidents where most of them were shootings. CHP says this investigation could have gone better if witnesses came forward.
Best thing to do is be a good witness. If you're in the middle of an active crime on the freeway or anywhere, get yourself out. And then remember as much as you can, take some notes on what you saw and be a good witness so that law enforcement can do a proper investigation and hopefully get justice for the victims and solve those crimes.
The hearing for Wandek and King was postponed until next Monday. CHP says if anyone has information on this shooting, call 396-6600. You can also remain anonymous by calling 396-3666.
5:07 is your time now. 2 children are dead after a crash yesterday afternoon on James Road, west of Oilfield Road in Oildale. California Highway Patrol says a white Nissan was headed west and collided with the front loader that drove into its path. The Nissan tried to veer away but struck the bucket of the front loader. The 2 inside, a boy and a girl, died from their injuries at the scene. The driver of the Nissan and another passenger were hospitalized with minor injuries. An investigation continues. Meantime, the man accused of causing a deadly hit-and-run crash last week in southwest Bakersfield has turned himself in. The crash happened May 3rd around 8:45 p.m. on Ming Avenue near Pinyon Springs Circle. That's just east of Ash Road. According to police, 31-year-old Eric Miles was driving an SUV that slammed into a Jeep. 2 people were inside that Jeep. The driver, identified as 24-year-old Christopher Lee Reyes, was killed. Miles is facing multiple charges, including vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. He's due in court this afternoon.
An investigation continues after a man was shot and killed by Arvin police officers Monday morning. According to Arvin police, officers were taking a stolen vehicle report around 11:30 a.m. when one of the officers saw the stolen vehicle drive past him. Officials say the officer attempted to stop the driver, but 28-year-old Elvis Viatoro failed to stop, leading to a short pursuit. That pursuit ended in the area of Sycamore Road near South Edison Road when Viatoro lost control of the car and crashed into farm equipment. Viatoro allegedly took off on foot before pulling out a knife, and that is when the officer involved shooting occurred. Viatoro was taken to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. He is scheduled to appear in court later today.
Meantime, we now know the name of a man who was shot and killed by officers last week in Rosamond. According to the CHP, officers were called to Highway 14 near Rosamond Boulevard Friday night for reports of a man setting fires. That man's been identified as 53-year-old William Joseph Weiler. Officials say 2 officers approached Weiler, who then lunged at them with a sharp weapon. According to the CHP, one of the officers tried to take Weiler down with a taser, but it didn't work. The officer shot Weiler, who later died.
Next week is National Police Week, a time to remember the men and women who lost their lives while wearing the badge. Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy paid tribute to fallen Kern County Sheriff's Deputy Philip Campus yesterday in a speech delivered on the House floor.
Campus was a bright example of what it means to serve others. Fittingly, this year, his name was added to the roll call of heroes on the National Peace Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. To Deputy Campus's children, we cannot begin to imagine your sadness and pain. But I want you to know this: your father was a hero.
Deputy Campus was shot and killed last summer during a SWAT standoff in Wasco. Kern County supervisors have declared May 19th as Peace Officers Memorial Day here in Kern County. Flags will fly at half-staff during National Police Week. 5:34 is our time now, and Ukraine stopped the flow of Russian natural gas through one hub that feeds European homes and industries. Meanwhile, a pro-Kremlin official in a southern region seized by Russian troops said it would ask Moscow to annex it. The remarks could be another sign of Russia's broader plan for Ukraine as it tries to salvage an invasion that has so far gone awry. After his forces failed to quickly overrun the capital, President Vladimir Putin shifted his focus to the country's eastern heartland of Donbas. But one of his commanders has suggested that Moscow's plans are broader, saying it also hopes to take control of the country's south.
Your time now is 5:34, and making news around the nation. More details after the manhunt for felon Casey White and corrections officer Vicky White ended in Indiana. Dash and body camera video show the moment that Casey White, no relation to Vicky White, was pulled from the car and taken into custody. Officers worked to remove the former corrections officer from the vehicle before taking her to a hospital. A coroner's report shows that Vicky White died of suicide. Police say the former corrections officer shot herself before police could make an arrest. Casey White later provided key information on the escape and manhunt to U.S. Marshals.
Interviewed the suspect for quite some time. I don't want to get into all the details of that because some of that may be used against him.
The convicted felon confessed he planned to get into a shootout with police. The plan failed when officers slammed their patrol car into the getaway vehicle. Casey White waived his right to fight extradition and returned to Alabama last night.
Now to the coronavirus, and local health officials say another 250 people have been infected with the virus from over the weekend. COVID-19 is making a comeback in Kern County after significantly subsiding following the Omicron wave. The increase is small, but the trend is going in the wrong direction. A month ago, public health data showed about an average of 21 people getting infected with the virus each day in Kern County. Now it's nearly 60. The virus is now transmitting at a similar rate like what we saw at the beginning of March. 3 months ago, the daily average was more than 600 infections. State data shows Kern hospitalizations are still low, with only 20 people receiving treatment for more severe symptoms of the virus. Another 2 are in the ICU. There were more than 300 COVID hospitalizations during the Omicron peak in January. Although it may not seem like a big deal right now, it could become an issue as we approach the summer months. With every peak, cases increase, followed by hospitalizations and deaths. Data shows every peak put enormous pressure on our local healthcare system, and that continues to remain the concern. While Omicron may have appeared to be less severe as the Delta variant, it was much more transmissible, and people were still getting very sick and dying. In fact, we know of at least 250 people who have died from coronavirus this year alone. More than 1,000 people in Kern died from coronavirus after vaccines were made available and chose not to get the shot.
This week, nurses from around the country will take to the streets of Washington, D.C. to help spread awareness of the hardships they've faced during the pandemic. 17's Chris Burton joins us in studio with more. Chris?
Well, Maddie, as if fighting the pandemic wasn't enough, one local nurse this week is fighting for change. Bakersfield nurse Larissa Ramirez will be there for the Million Nurses March, also known as the National Nurses March, tomorrow, pushing for change in our healthcare system. To her knowledge, she's the only nurse from Bakersfield making the trip, but she says she feels compelled to do her part to improve conditions for workers and patients alike.
It doesn't matter to me where those people exist, that within our country, we should all be invested in making sure that everyone is kept as safe as possible and everybody receives the quality medical care that they deserve.
The National Nurses March sets off for Capitol Hill tomorrow morning. The group is advocating for legislation currently in Congress that would regulate hospital staffing and introduce violence prevention measures. Marchers also hope to bring general awareness to issues like discrimination and violence against healthcare workers. And we will be catching up with Larissa when she comes home this week. But, you know, we've been talking about nurses all this week because it is Nurse Appreciation Week. But just so impressive to see somebody, nurses are so tired, and to see somebody fighting for her profession, not just for herself, is impressive.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much.
Yeah.
All right, 5:40 is our time, or 5:39 is our time now. And in your 17 Crime Watch, the coroner has identified the man shot and killed in East Bakersfield nearly 3 weeks ago. Bakersfield police say 58-year-old Rolando Gonzalez was found April 21st at the intersection of 19th and Sonora Streets with a gunshot wound to his chest. He was taken to Kern Medical, where he later died. Officers arrested 39-year-old Juan De Leon on suspicion of murder 2 days later, but he was released. Prosecutors sent the case back for further investigation.
Bakersfield police are asking for the public's help finding a missing teen girl and her child. Police say 16-year-old Aaliyah Guzman and her daughter were last seen May 3rd around 1:30 in the afternoon on South Chester Avenue near Geneva Avenue. Guzman's described as 5'1", 130 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. She has a tattoo with the name Guzman on her right arm. Her daughter's 8 months old and was wearing a yellow onesie. Anyone with information is asked to call BPD at 327-7111.
And BPD is seeking help to find a man considered at risk due to health issues. 29-year-old Ralph Aguilera was last seen April 28th on Oregon Street near Beale Avenue in East Bakersfield. Aguilera is 6 feet 2 inches tall with brown hair and eyes. He also has a mole on his neck. He was last seen driving a red 2021 Jeep SUV with the California license plate 8XAE147. Anyone with information about Ralph Aguilera's whereabouts is asked to call police.
Making news around town, the first of 2 community meetings held by the Bakersfield Police Department's Monitor team to gather perspectives to improve police practices happened last night at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Center on South Owen Street in Southeast Bakersfield. The goal is to broadly engage communities in the reform process and at this stage to get their insight about concerns.
I mean, what we hear is real emotion, and you know, police encounters have real effect and impact on people, and so that's why it's so important. And I think that what we saw and heard here tonight is encouraging in terms of the willingness of the community to work through the process. But as you identified, it is a process, and we're in the early stages of that process, and so being able to measure and report on the actions of the department is a key goal for our role as monitor.
The community is invited to the second meeting tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Silver Creek Community Room on Harris.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.